it's there. So back again with me for the advanced listening. So we start from the part one. Part one. Answer the question with complete the information from the audio. Number one. How many numbers of American families have a television? In the US, almost all families have a TV. 98% many families have more than one TV. Number two, describe the long and the immediate TV violence and give the example. So the answer is long-term TV violence will affect children's behavior in the next 10 years. Children who watch more violence television are more aggressive and commit more violence as adults. Example, the research found the children who had watched a lot of violent TV at age 8 were more violent at age 18. So number three, why does the cartoon become the source of violence? Because the cartoon for children have the most violence. More than many show for adult cartoons have an average of 32 violence acts per hour. 32 times every hour one cartoon character hurts another character. In some way what you've seen in these cartoons. Number four, what is the result of the research from the TV violence? So the study suggests that there is a link between TV violence and real violence, and the TV violence has long-term impact of this case. So we are next to the another part. So make a note and retell using your own word. So violence in the media by focusing on television, TV violence and its impact on children. We will discuss how much violence in the TV and then we will talk about the impact of the TV violence. So a lot of debate about this issue today because children watch a lot of TV, right? And TV has a huge impact of children. Kids today watching a television and almost all family have TV like 98%. Many have families have more than one TV. 52 of children have television in their bedroom so they can watch whenever they want. It is about 3 or 4 house TV every day for almost 1,500 hours a year. Now compared to the most amount of time two kids spend in school each year about 900 hours, and you can see the TV must have a big impact. Now, many people feel that children shows such a cartoon are much too violent. Some people even feel that violence on television is the thing gets to be more violent. Is there is a link between the violence children see on TV and real violence? To assess how much violence in the TV research has focused on counting the number of acts and violence on TV in an average day. Includes any act that could hurt or kill people in real life. Surprisingly, cartoons for children have the most violence. More than one show for adult cartoon have an average of 32 violent acts per hour. 32 times every hour on a cartoon, character hurt another character in some way that you've seen in cartoons. I'm sure that characters hit each other in the head or shot each other many different violent acts. Other kids shows have a lot of violence as well. For example, many kids shows have characters that fight each other and kick and punch each other, so they are very violent as well. So by counting all this act and violence per day, it's really cause children to act more violence. So we can estimate that by the time child is 20, he or she will have average of about 100,000 active violent television. That is about 30 violent acts per day. It's really cause children to act more violently. Second question, how does we assess the impact of TV violence of children? First, we'll focus on some immediate effect of watching TV violence. What happens immediately after a child watches something violent on TV? In the first study, we looked at today a group of children saw a TV show of child hitting and kicking a doll, and after they watched the video, each child was left alone in a room with the same type of doll. All the children in the study 100% hit and kicked the doll just like they saw on TV. So, the link here between the kids see they do same quite strong. Another way to assess the effect of TV violence on children is to focus on the long-term effect. What happened many years after children watches violent TV? In 1916, research has studied 8-year-old children in typical American city. They studied how much violent TV the children watch and whether the children act violently at home or at school. Then 10 years later, they studied the same children at 18. The research found that children found watch a lot of violent TV age 8 were more violent at age 17, 18. Children who watch live violent TV are less violent at age 18, so the study suggests that have a link between TV violence and a real violence that watching violent TV has long-term impact of this case. Okay. We are next to the part 2. Deciding a statement is true or false. If the statement is true, you have to fix it. Number 1, the statement is the miller is very rich. So the statement is totally false because actually the miller is very poor. The miller died leaving nothing but his mill, his donkey, and a cat. Number 2, the youngest sons get the meal from the miller. The statement is false too because the youngest son inherited the cat. Number 3, there are three things more from the miller to give his children. There are the mile, horse, and cat. So the statement is totally wrong. I mean false, because three things more the miller to give to his children. There are meal, donkey, and a cat. Number 4, the youngest has son the cat and made some maintenance of out his fur, so it's false. He doesn't eat the cat, but follows the cat advice, which can make it look as if he is rich and deceives the king and his daughter. Number 5, Marquis of Carabas in the same of the cat. The statement is totally wrong, false too, because the name belongs to the youngest son of the miller. We are next for another part. Make a note and retell the story using your own words. Once upon a time there was a poor miller who had three sons. The years went by and the miller died, leaving Nord and a donkey and a cat. The eldest son took the mile, so the second-born son rode of the donkey. And the youngest son saw the hope fell and said to the youngest son, I will eat this cat and make some meat of his fur. Then I will have nothing left in the world and shall die in hunger. That cat was listening to his master complain like this, but he pretended not to have heard anything. Instead, he put on a serious face and said, do not look so sad, master. Just give me a bag and pair of boots, and I will show you that you did not receive such a poor inheritance in me. The cat master had often seen him play a great many cunning tricks to catch rats and mice, as he used to hang out by the hills, and so he hid himself in the ground and pretended to be dead. Thinking this over, he thought it wasn't impossible that cat could have him after all. So he gave the cat his bag and spent his last pennies of ordering fine pair of boots to make especially for the cat. He put the brown and the car into his bag, and stretching away if he were dead, waited for some young rabbit, still not acquainted with the deceit of the world, to come and rummage in his bag for the brown and corn. Not long after he lay down, he had a bee wanted. A rash and foolish young wit jumped into the rich bag, and Monsieur Paused. Immediately drew a coat and a string and caught him. Proud of his prey, he went to the place and asked to speak with majesty. He was shown upstairs into the king's apartment, and making a low bow, said to him, I have brought you, sir, a rabbit of the warren, which my noble lord and marquis Carabas of commandment to present to your majesty from him. Another time he went himself among a cornfield, holding still his bag open, and when abreast of Patridex ran to the draw the strings so caught them both. He went and made a present of this to the king, as he had done before for the rabbit. The king in like manner received the partridge with the great pleasure, and ordered him some money or drink. In this way the cat continued for 2 3 months to bring presents to the king, always saying they were from his master. And Marquis of Carabas one day in particular he heard that the palace that the king was planning to drive in his carriage along for the river bank, taking with his daughter the most beautiful princess in the world. The miller's son did what the cat advised him to, without knowing why or wherefore. While he was washing, then by the cat began to cry out, Help! Help! My lord Marquis of Carabas is going to be drowned. At his noise the king put his head out of a coach window, and finding it was the cat who had so often brought him a good game, commanded his guards to his immediately to the assistance of his lordship. The Marquis of Carabas While they were drawing the poor Marquis of the river, the cat came up to the coach and told the king that while his master was washing, there came by some rogues who went off his clothes. So he had cried out, thievish, several times, as loud he could. This cunning cat hidden the clothes under a great stone. The king immediately commanded The cunning cat had hidden the clothes under a great stone. The king immediately commanded of the officer of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the Lord Marquis of Carabas. The king was very pleased to meet the Marquis of Carabas, and the fine clothes he had given his suited him extremely well. For although he was a handsome and well-built fellow, the king's daughter took a secret inclination to him, and the Marquis of Bardano have sooner cast 2 or 3 respectful and somewhat tender glances, but she fell in love with him to distraction. The king invited him to sit in the coach and ride along with them, with the lifeguards and a glittering uniform trotting alongside. The cat, quite overjoyed to see his project begin success, marched on before, and meeting him some countrymen who were moving a meadow, he said to them, "Good people, you who are mowing, if you do not tell the king that the meadow you mow belongs to my lord Marquis of Carabas, the soldier will chop you like a herbs for the part." And the king not fell asking of the mowers to whom the meadow they were moving belonged. "To my lord Marquis of Carabas," answered the all two together. The cat street that had made them terribly afraid. "You see, sir," said the Marquis, "this is a meadow which never fails to yield plentiful harvest every year." The master cat, who went still on before, met, met with some repairs, and said to them, "Good people, you who are weeping, if you do not tell the king that all this corn belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, it shall be chopped up like herbs for the pot." The king, who passed by a moment after, wished to know that who to whom all the corn, which then he saw did belong to my lord Marquis of Carabas, replied the reapers, and the king was very well pleased with it, as well the Marquis whom he congratulated. Then the king said, "Let us now go to your castle." The miller's sons, not knowing what to reply, looked at Puss, who said, "If your majesty will but wait an hour, I will go on before and order the castle to be made ready for you." With that he jumped away and went to the castle of a great Ogre and asked to see him, saying he could not pass so near his home without having the hour of paying his respects to him. The ogre received him as civilly as an ogre could do, and made him sit down. "I have been assured," that said the cat, "that you have the gift of being able to change yourself into all sorts of creatures as you wish. You can, for example, transform yourself into a lion or elephant or the like." "That is true," answered the ogre very briskly, "and to convince you, you shall see me now become a lion." Puss was terrified at the sight of the lion so near him, then immediately climbed up the curtains, not without difficulty, because his boots were no use to him for climbing. A little while after he saw that the ogre had resumed his natural form. He came down and admitted he had been very much frightened. "However," said the cat, "I fear that you will not be able to save yourself even in the form of a lion, for the king is coming with his army and means to destroy you." The ogre looked out of the window and saw the king waiting outside with his soldiers, and said, "What shall I do? What shall I save myself?" Puss replied, "If you can also change yourself into something very small, then you can hide." In an instant the ogre turned himself into a mouse, then began to run about the floor. Puss no sooner saw his but he fell upon into him and ate him up. Puss, who heard the noise of his Majesty's coach running over the Down Bridge, ran out and said to the king, "Your Majesty is welcome to his castle of my lord Marquis of Carabas." "What, my lord Marquis!" cried the king, "does this castle belong to you? There can be nothing finer of this court and the stately building which surround it. Let's go into it, if you please." So this is the part 3. There was some time ago a gentleman who was very rich. He had fine town and country houses. His dishes and the flats were all gold or silver. His rooms were hung with damask. His chair and sofa were covered with the richest silks. His carriage were all gilt with gold in a grand style. But it happened that his gentleman had a blue beard, which made him so very fat and ugly that none of the ladies in the parts where he lived would venture to go into his company. Now there was a certain lady of rank who lived very near him, and had two daughters, both of them of very great beauty. Bluebeard asked her to bestow one of them upon him for a wife, and left him to herself to choose which one the two it should be. But the young ladies again and again said they would never marry Bluebeard. Yet, to be as civil as they could, each of them said the only reason why she would not give him was because he was loth to hinder her sister from the match, which would be such a good one for her. Still, the truth of the matter was, they could neither of the beard he thought of having husband with a blue beard, and besides, they had heard of his having been married to several wives before, and nobody could tell what had ever become of any of them, as Bluebeard wished very much to gain their favor. He asked a lady and her daughters, the same ladies who were on a visit of the house, to go with him to one of his country seats, where they spent a whole week, during which they passed all their time in nothing but parties for hunting and fishing, music, dancing, and feasts. No one even thought of going to bed, and he nights were passed in the merry-making of all kinds. In short, the time rolled in so much pleasure. The youngest of the two sisters began to think that the beard which she had been so much afraid of. Okay. In short time, the time rolled on his much pleasure. The youngest of the two sisters began to think that beer which she had been so much afraid of was not very blue, and that the gentleman who owned it was vastly civil and pleasing. Soon after they returned home, she told her mother that she had no longer any dislike to accept of Bluebeard for her husband, and in a very short time they were married. About a month after the marriage had taken place, Bluebeard told his wife not to be forced to leave her for a fit. He had some affair to attend to this country. He desired her to be sure indulge herself in a very kind of leisure to many of her friends as he liked, and to treat them with all the short dainties, that her time might pass pleasantly till he came out. And again, here, said he, are the keys of the two large wardrobes. This is the key of the great box and the content the best place, which we use for company. This belongs to my strong box, where I keep my money, and this key belongs to the casket, in which were all my jewels. Here also the master key of the rooms in the house, but the small key belongs to the closet and the end of the gallery on the ground floor. I give you leave, said he, to open or to do what you like with all the rest except this closet. This, my dear, you must not enter, nor even put the key into the lock. For all the world, if you do not obey me in this one thing, you must accept the most dreadful punishment. She promised to obey his orders in the most painful manner, and Bluebeard, after kissing her tenderly, stepped into his coach and drove away. When Bluebeard was gone, the friend of his wife did not wait to be asked, so eager were they to see all the riches and fine things she had gained by marriage, for they had none of them gone to the wedding, on account of their dislike to the Bluebeard of the bridegroom. As soon as they are come to the house, they ran about the room to room closet to closet, and the room wardrobe to wardrobe, looking into each with wonder and delight, and said, let every fresh one they come was richer and finer than what they had seen the moment before. At last they come to the drawing rooms, where the surprise was made still greater by costly grandeur and hanging. The sofas, the chairs, cupboards, tables, sideboards, and looking glasses. The famous of these last were silver gills most richly adorned, and these glasses they saw themselves from head to foot. In short, nothing could exceed the richness of what they saw, and they all did not fail to admire and envy the good fortune of their friend. But all this time the bride herself was far from thinking about the fine speeches they made to her, for she was eager to see what was in the closet of her husband, had told her not to open. So great, and it was her desire to do this that without thinking how rude it would be to leave her guest, she slipped away down a private staircase and led to his forbidden closet, and in such hurry that he was 2 or 3 times a day falling downstairs and breaking her neck. When she reached to the floor in the closet, she stopped for a few moments to think of the door her husband had given Tell. He had told her that he would not fail to keep his word and punish her very severely if she did not obey him, but she was too curious to know what was inside, that she made up her mind to venture in spite and everything. She danced with the trembling down the key into the lock, and the door straightly open. As the window shutters were closed, she at first could see nothing. In the short time she saw the floor was covered with cold blood, on which the bodies of several little women were lying. These were all the wives whom Bluebeard had married, and killed one after another. At this sight she was ready to sink with fear, and the key of the closet door, which she held in her hand, fell on the floor. When she had a little got to the bed of her right, she took it up, locked the door, and made haste back to her own room. Then she might have a little to get into humor to amuse to get up, lock the door, and made haste back to her own. Then she might have little time to get into Homer or boss her company. But this she could not to do, so great were her fright and what she had seen, as she found that the key of the closet had got stained with the blood in the falling of the door of the floor. She whipped it 2 or 3 times over to clean it. Yet still the blood kept on the same as before. She next washed, but the blood did not move at all. She then scoured it with the brick dust, and after with sand, but in spite of she could do, the blood was still there, for the kid was Perry, who was Bluebird's friend, so that as fast she got of the blood on one side, it came again on the other. Early in the same evening, Bluebird came home, saying that before he had gone for his journey he was met by a horseman, who was coming to tell him that his affair in the country was settled without his being present. Urban with his wife everything she could think of to make him believe she was in transports of joy at his sudden return. The next morning he asked for her the keys. She gave them to him, but she could not help showing her fright. Hubert easily guessed what had been the matter. "How is it," said he, "that the key of the closet oven of the ground floor is not here?" "It is not," said the wife. "Then I must have left it in my dressing table. Be sure you give it me and by," replied the Bluebeard. After going a good many times backward and forward as if she was walking, looking for the key, she was at least forced to give in to the Bluebeard. He looked hard at it and then said, "How came this blood upon the key?" "I'm sure I don't know," replied the poor lady, at the same time turning as white as sheet. "You don't know," said the Bluebeard sternly, "but I know well enough. You have been in the closet of the ground floor. Very well, madam. Since you are so mighty fond of this closet, you shall be sure to take your place among the ladies you saw there." His wife was almost dead with fear, now fell upon her knees, asked his pardon 1,000 times for her fault, and asked him to forgive her, looking all the same time so very mournful and lovely, that she would have melted any heart that was not harder than much. Bluebird only said, "No, no, no, madam, you shall die this very minute." "Alas," said the pure trembling creature, "if I must die in the time little time to say my prayers I give you," replied the cruel Bluebird. Half a quarter of half an hour, not a moment longer than it, had left for to herself. She called her system, and after telling her as well, "Run up to the top of the tower and see if my brothers are not in sight, for they say they will visit me today, and if you see them, make a sign for them to gallop on as fast as fair they can." Her sister traded as she was desired, and the poor trembling lady every minute cried up to her, "Anne, sister Anne, do you see any coming?" Her sister said, "I see nothing but the sun, which makes the dust, and the grass which look green." In the meanwhile, Bluebeard, with the greasy matters in his hand, plodded as loud as he could to his wife. "Come down at once, or I will fetch you. Fetch you. One moment longer, I beseech you," Bluebeard said, and again called softly to her sister. "Sister Anne, do you see any coming?" To which she answered, "I see nothing but the sun, which make a dust, and the clouds, which look green." Bluebird now again blowed, which she answered, "Come down, I say, this very moment, or I shall come to fetch you." "I am coming, indeed I will coming in a minute," sobbed his wretched wife. Then she once more cried, "Annie, sister, Annie, do you see any one coming?" "I see," said her sister, "a cloud of dust a little to the left." "Do you think it's my brother?" said the wife. "Alas, no, dear sister," replied she, "it is only a flock of sheep." "Will you come down, madam?" said Bluebeard in the greatest rage. "Only one single moment more," said she. And then she called up the laster, Sister Anne, do you see anyone coming?" "I see," replied her sister, "two men of a horseback coming, but they are still a great way off." "Thanks God," cried she, "they are brothers, beckons them to make haste." Bluebeard now cried out so loud for her to come down that his voice shook the whole house. The poor lady with her hair loose and in turn now calmed down, and fell on her knees begging him to spare her life. But he stopped her, saying, "All is one of no use, for you shall die," and then seizing her by hair raised his cimeters and struck off her head. The poor woman now begged a single moment to say one prayer. "No, no, no," said Bluebeard, "I will give you one more time. You have too much already." And again he raised his arm. Just at this instant a knocking was heard at the gate, which made Bluebeard wait a moment to see who it was. The gate is now fly open and two officers dressed in their own uniform come in, and which their swords in his hand ran straight to Bluebeard, who, saying they were his wife brothers, trying to escape from their presence by the pursuit, and seized him before he had gone 20 steps, and plunging their sword into his body, he fell down and dead at the feet. The poor wife, who was almost as dead as her husband, was not able at the first to rise and embrace her brother, but she soon came to herself, as Bluebeard had no heirs. She found herself the owner of a great riches. She gave a part of his vast fortune as a marriage dowry to her sister Anne, who soon after became the wife of a young gentleman who had a long of hair. Some of the money said the buying captain's commission for the two brothers, and the rest ran to the worthy gentleman who married shortly after, and whose kind treatment suited maiden of the blue face. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you.